Hi, everybody. I have a question. What is a woman? It should be a very simple question to answer. What is a woman? Until that can be answered, how could we have a discussion about trans issues, biological women issues, things like that? Can anybody just give a definition of what a woman is? That's it.
Don't worry, there is a definition for what a woman is. The normal, sane people in society can give it to you. The right-wing conservative Republicans can give it to you. Even self-described centrists can give it to you. There are probably still some liberal left-wing types that haven't been completely corrupted by woke Marxism that can give it to you. It's a very simple definition. A woman is an adult human female. That's it. Problem solved. Yet Democrats on the left are having a hard time defining the word woman for some reason. Something so simple that even children can do it. Something that human beings have been able to define since, well, the dawn of time, if you will. That there is man and there is woman. This is a very rudimentary concept. Yet Democrat politicians, Democrat activists, and apparently Democrat nominees for the Supreme Court are unable to grasp what has been common knowledge for time immemorial.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the
biologist.
meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
And not only are they unable to define it, they are even starting to get mad when you ask them to define it. With the sheer suggestion that they have to define such an integral part of human nature causes them to freak out.
Congressman, thank you for being here.
I think this interview is over. Let's turn off the cameras.
I just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not going to find out.
I mean, it really is quite absurd that these people cannot define what a woman is, and simply refuse to in most cases. Yet, even still, if you do get them to define it for you, they come off sounding even more insane, because the definition they end up giving you makes absolutely no sense. It either ends up being a circular definition that sounds like this.
Okay, what would I say? Let me ask, are you one of those feminists?
I am.
Oh, okay, lucky guess. What is a woman?
Somebody who identifies as a woman.
A woman is anyone who identifies as a woman. This is probably the most common response. And when you push back on that definition, they sound confused as to why you would disagree. It's because this so-called definition still fails to define what exactly a woman is. So, to try to fix this, they'll come up with even more complex attempts to define a woman, which looks something like this. That a woman is a social category referring to a person's felt, internal, and individual experience of gender. But again, this convoluted answer to the question of what is a woman still fails to define exactly what a woman is, because this definition places the answer all within a person's mind, failing to describe something within reality. Then when you ask the so-called experts on the matter, they get annoyed by the question and give you very pretentious answers.
This answer from our expert simply doesn't work on any level, unfortunately. So I asked again, and she tried again. A few minutes later, after consulting with her expert-level PhD books, she said, "What is a woman? Anything she wants to be." This is about the caliber of insight that I might expect from a fortune cookie. And they give you fortune cookies for free with your order of Kung Pao chicken. I really hate to think how much Dr. Logan spent on university courses in order to attain a similar level of enlightenment. So that's kind of disturbing. Needless to say, anything she wants to be cannot be a valid definition for the word woman. Definitions are supposed to tell you what a thing is. This definition tells me almost nothing about women, except that apparently they're shapeshifters.
Then finally, since their attempts to define what a woman is ends up failing horribly, the woke leftists just end up going off the deep end and creating a mass of gobbledygook to try to describe what a woman is. As seen in this tweet from the UN's Women account, saying trans women are women at the end of the day. Every woman is a woman. Women are multifaceted, intergenerational, international. They are limitless, formless. Women are the world. I can't help but laugh at this because it's so utterly retarded. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't describe anything. It's just a bunch of words strung together to make some kind of grand statement that makes it sound like their definition of woman is so transcendent that normal people can't understand it. Yet it's just because the left have no idea what a woman is, and they have no way to defend their position. It's just believe our made-up reality or you're a transphobe.
Well, this is one of the problems with this left-wing gender ideology is that no one who espouses it can even tell you what these words mean. Like, what is a woman?
Well,
can you tell me what a woman is?
No, I can't. Because it's not for me to say. Womanhood looks different for everybody.
What do you define a woman as?
An adult human female.
And what does a female mean?
Well,
how
that's
do you define a female?
someone with female reproductive organs.
Okay.
Someone who's, here's the thing. When you're female, it goes right down to your bones, your DNA. So that's why if someone dies, we could dig up their bones 100 years from now. We have no idea what they believed in their head, but we can tell what sex they were because it's ingrained in every fiber of their being.
Interesting. So I'm trying to understand. Your definition is that a woman is someone who is female, you said, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Is a biological female.
So what happens if we have maybe someone who is female, identifies as a woman, right? Cisgender woman, right? As you just explained, maybe doesn't have the ability to reproduce. Maybe doesn't have those organs that you're talking about that are reproductive organs.
I have answered the question. You stood up here and said trans women are women.
Yes.
Tell me what you mean. What is a woman?
Womanhood is something that, just as Ethan explained, I cannot define because I am not
but
myself.
You used the word, so what did you mean when you said trans women are women if you don't know what it means?
Right. So here's the thing. So I do not define what a woman is because I do not identify as a woman. Womanhood is something that is an umbrella term. It includes people
that describes what?
People who identify as a woman.
Identify as what?
As a woman.
What is that?
Was to each their own. Okay. Each woman, each man, each person is going to have a different relation with their own gender identity and define it differently. And so trans women are women too.
Okay.
And you want to hold on.
Trans women are women. You won't even tell me what the word means, though. So that's the problem.
You want to reduce women, you want to reduce men down to maybe just their genetics, our genitals, our chromosomes, right? That's what you're saying.
What you want to do is
what
you want to do is appropriate women. You want to appropriate womanhood.
Okay.
And turn it into basically a costume that could be worn.
They don't know what a woman is. How to describe a woman. I mean, this moron just said woman is an umbrella term. Since when? An umbrella term for what? When has woman ever been a term to describe anything but an adult human female? It never has. At least until this queer theory transgender garbage came along. And why? Why has the term woman and the whole category of womanhood been deconstructed to the point where it's an umbrella term that encompasses a whole array of people who still can't define what they even are? Because that's exactly what all this queer theory, transgender, LGBT, whatever nonsense was meant to do. I mean, within the literature, queer literally means an identity without an essence. That's clearly what they've redefined woman to mean. It's why no one can define it or describe what a woman is, as all of this was meant to destabilize what a woman is, disrupting the relationship between men and women, and by extension, destabilize the normal family structure, something the Marxists hate, with all of this being more Marxist tactics repackaged into sex and gender struggles, much like critical race theory is a Marxist repackaging with racial issues. As Herbert Marcuse detailed, that the Marxists basically had to dump the working class for a new coalition that had the revolutionary energy to be agitated into action and would not become stabilized into becoming just more of the status quo. And by the way, that's what's happened to the feminists. They've become the status quo. Certainly when compared to these transgender movements. I mean, why do you think there's such a contention between LGBT activists and the so-called TERFs, the trans-exclusionary radical feminists? Why do you think Ellen Page went from being a lesbian feminist to a trans man? Because this is the revolutionary movement now. So it's fine to throw feminists under the bus for trans issues, as it were. And so this is where Marcuse said to look for the new revolutionary vanguard in places like people of color, primarily black people and other minority groups, especially people with mental illnesses, homosexuals, transvestites, and people with strange sexual fetishes. Anything that would be seen as abnormal or rejected by normal society. Because these outcasts from broader mainstream society were already resentful of that society because it rejected whatever deviant behaviors they were into. So the Marxists believed that if these people were only given the right ideological view of the world, they could be stoked into a revolutionary movement. And behold, decades later, we now have the LGBT movement, with these so-called transgenders at the head of the beast, along with countless other weird fetishes bringing up the rear. I mean, even pedophilia is following right along. And while it's currently at the back of the crowd, there's definitely an argument that you can see it coming up in the rearview mirror, as it were. That message you normally find on your side view mirror, comes to mind. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. Anyways, I bring all this up just to point out that this has all been planned. That this is the real reason they can't define what a woman is. Sure, most of the so-called queer people, like the ones Matt Walsh was talking to, probably really believe that you can't define a woman. That it's just this mystical thing that no one can figure out. But the real players in all this, the critical race theorists and race Marxists and queer theory scholars, people like Judge Brown Jackson, they know damn well what a woman is. They know the definition of a woman is an adult human female. But they dare not say that because acknowledging that fact would bring down the entire house of cards that the so-called transgender movement is built on. They have to keep repeating the lie that a woman can't be defined because they need that movement to continue. They need men who think they're women to continue to destabilize and destroy the institution of women. That includes all the spaces that women have traditionally held. They need this to continue because that's what creates the conflict, or the contradictions that the Marxists might say, between so-called transgenders and normal people. The people they would label as cisgender, which, just to be clear, all of this is just a bunch of made-up nonsense constructed in order to create that class conflict by turning the mentally ill of society into a cultural movement that seeks to overthrow society. It's basic Marxism 101. And so, due to this, we now have mentally ill men who think they're women being allowed into women-only spaces. Be it sports, bathrooms, locker rooms, or any other area that is for women only. Because trans women are women and should be allowed to mingle with and participate alongside actual women. If they're not, then that shows how transphobic and bigoted society is. And of course, you don't want to be transphobic, do you? Well, then that means men pretending to be women have to be allowed into any space they want. And not only be allowed into those spaces, they're taking control of them. Essentially replacing women at the top of their own fields. What better example is there than Bruce Jenner being named Woman of the Year? We also have Rachel Levine being nominated as one of USA Today's Women of the Year. These are men that have replaced women in their own category. You even have these men pretending to be women winning beauty pageants, like Miss Nevada and Miss Universe Spain. You even have one on the cover of Sports Illustrated, for crying out loud. What man wants to see a deranged mental patient dressed up as a woman on the cover of a magazine that's targeted at men? Stealing the cover of the magazine away from a real woman, something men actually want to see. And speaking of stealing, you have case after case of men pretending to be women, stealing the spotlight from real women in almost every type of sporting event. By beating women at every turn, setting new records that women have no chance of overcoming. Be it in weightlifting, cycling, track, or swimming with the most recent Leah Thomas controversy. You even have it in MMA, where these men get to physically fight against women and beat the hell out of them. In one case so severely that the woman's skull was fractured. Then these mentally ill men get celebrated for it and even given awards for doing so. You have a case in Australia where a 6 foot, 220-pound man who thinks he's a woman was allowed to play handball with women and was dominating the sport, until the AFL prevented him from playing because he was just too much of a physical threat to the women he was playing against.
To be a champion footy player, it helps to have the athletic weapons of size, strength, and a mighty kicking boot. Hannah Mouncey certainly ticked those boxes and was in demand by the top clubs to play in the women's AFL. But the AFL said no. It decided she was ineligible for its competition because at 6'2" and weighing 100 kilograms, she was too much of a physical threat to her opponents. Now, while it might seem like a clear case of discrimination, it's not that simple. You see, Hannah wasn't born a girl, but a boy.
Up, Holly, nice and high.
For most athletes, being the toughest player on the team is a distinct advantage.
For Hannah. Good hands, Hannah.
But for Hannah Mouncey, her greatest strength is also her biggest weakness.
All I'm doing is being myself, which, you know, you'd hope 99% of the population are able to do every day, and play football, which people have done in Australia for 150 years. You know, those two things combined shouldn't be a huge issue.
At 6'2" and weighing 100 kilos, the Australian Football League has ruled that Hannah is too powerful to play in its elite women's competition.
Good hands, Hannah, great hands.
Because she was once a man.
No shit!
It's not that he was once a man, it's because he is a man. And when you see this giant man playing with and against all these women, you ask yourself, what in the world is going on? Well, there is a reason for it. It's to erase women. More specifically, the biological foundation of women that society is built on. So not only do we see the erasure of women from their own spaces, language itself is being reshaped to take away the unique attributes of women and to just give them to everyone. There are no longer pregnant women. We have birthing people now, a term even the Biden administration used in their maternal health guidance. Breastfeeding is no longer a thing. It's now chest feeding, because inclusive language is vital. You have health sites for women referring to the vagina as the front hole, saying it's gender-inclusive language that's considerate of the fact that some trans people don't identify with the labels the medical community attaches to their genitals. You have periods no longer being something a woman does, but now just being something all people do, referring to them as just menstruating people, language that Democrats are perfectly fine using.
What this is about is controlling women's bodies and controlling people who are not cisgender men. This is about making sure that someone like me as a woman or any menstruating person in this country cannot make decisions over their own body.
Democrats and the woke left have completely abandoned everything to do with the fundamental foundation of a stable society, that of a two-parent household with a man and a woman, as they don't even believe in biological differences anymore. Sure, you might get some to play lip service to it and say they do believe in biological differences. Yet when pressed further about the trans issues, they will run away from the question. So whether they actually believe it or not, by their own actions they don't support this essential fact. So you have places like Nature.com just straight up saying there is no biological basis to say someone is male or female based on the genitals they're born with. Ilhan Omar, a Democrat, while trying to defend one of these mentally ill men competing against women, wrote in a letter that the myth that trans women have a direct competitive advantage is not supported by medical science. So she's basically saying there is no biological difference between men and women. I mean, it's just unreal that these people will say things like this without an ounce of irony.
Basically, it's not correct that there is such a thing as biological sex. And I'm a historian of medicine. I can unpack that for you at great length if you want, but in the interest of time, I won't. So that's a very popular misconception.
So as far as Democrats and the leftists are concerned, there is no biological sex anymore. Your genitals have no basis in determining if you're a man or a woman. It's all just societal constructs. So anyone can identify as anything. So a woman is just someone that identifies as a woman. That's all that's required. That's the left's definition. So mentally ill men can just proclaim they're a woman and then tell everyone that not every woman has a period. Biology be damned.
Important things to remember: not everyone who has a period is a woman, and not every woman has a period. Period. Accept it, move on. It's good advice.
All of this needs to be rejected at every level. These people should be removed from all women's spaces, be it sports, bathrooms, or whatever. No one should be referring to these mentally ill men as women, because they are not. And no amount of surgery, language manipulation, or societal engineering will ever change that. We need to stop giving in to this mental delusion from these people. Stop referring to them as anything other than what they are, mentally ill men, and proclaim loudly that women are adult human females, and that this is a hill we're willing to die on, because women are worth protecting. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. You can find me on most social media sites talking about culture and politics. So do look me up and say hello. And take care, and God bless.